My name is Michelle Wynn, and I have two children. Amanda is 17, and Jacob is 12. And we live in Menor, and Amanda's going to be a senior in high school, and Jacob is going to be in 7th grade. When Jacob was born, he was diagnosed with Charge syndrome, and it took a while to put all the pieces together. We didn't realize he was deafblind until he was about 6 months old. With Charge syndrome, there's a very big medical piece to it. He was very sick on a ventilator, and he was in the hospital for a year, more than he was home. And so as we were able to go to these different specialists, then they diagnosed his hearing loss was diagnosed right away, but his visual deficit was diagnosed when he was about 6 months old. I remember when Jacob was first diagnosed feeling just helpless and like, what is his life going to be like? And, but as things progressed, we realized that things really aren't as bad as they were going, as maybe we were first led to believe they might be. Yeah, they were kind of seemed to focus on what Jacob would not be able to do, as opposed to really what he is able to do. Jacob changed everything about our life, just the way we looked at everything. I wasn't, I had to learn as I went. Like I said, there was a big medical piece, so we had to learn how to use a lot of machines that, that I had never even knew what they were, and so that was a hard thing. Once we got a little more comfortable with the medical piece, then we were able to more focus on Jacob as a baby. At first it was very, unfortunately, survival. Originally we were getting our primary supports from the Charge Syndrome Foundation. We attended a couple of the national conferences, and that is where I learned about the DB Link. And at the conferences, they very much encouraged you to register with your statewide Ohio Deafblind Project. They really are big on getting everybody accounted for services and funding and many different, for a voice, really. The biggest support in Jacob's life is obviously my family. They've been very helpful. As far as like other supports, like I mentioned, I think the other parents are really just, I can't say enough about what it's like to have somebody understand your journey, and I think that's really been probably the most beneficial for me. Because I never at the time thought of Jake as being deafblind. And then because he could see and he could hear, although they weren't perfect or what they would consider normal, I just never looked at him. And then when somebody suggested that we register him, I was like, well, he can see, and he can hear. But then they were kind of explained to me that with any combination of a deficit, he would definitely qualify and be diagnosed as deafblind. Mm-hmm. So that's when we registered him with our Ohio Deafblind Project. I think with Jake being diagnosed as deafblind, in addition to having Charge syndrome, did help with some of the services he received. Originally, I wasn't sure of any services that were available, just because it's a learning process, as you go. And I was definitely just wasn't aware of anything. And then it was amazing how it sort of, the Deafblind Link sort of opened up, the retreats and just knowing other parents, meeting older kids who are deafblind, or, meeting the other parents who have been through exactly what I've been through, or very similar paths. And so that was very helpful. As Jake gets older, it is a little difficult socially for him. So he is a little isolated, I believe. He has a lot of adults with him all the time. But as far as Jake having interaction with peers, it's very structured. It's never spontaneous, So that's been a little difficult, Kids don't know how to react to him, and I don't think Jake knows how to react to them, so that's been a little difficult. Well, at home, it's a lot more normal than somebody might think. There's the fighting and the get him out of my room, get her out of my, he doesn't want people in his room, she doesn't want people, so that part's kind of cool to see because it is very normal from what maybe other people would think my home life is like, or he's, torturing the dogs or the dogs are torturing him, that kind of thing. It's actually pretty normal. We just have a lot of medical equipment around, Just the unknown, I think, and just learning so many different, even some of the medical terms that you just never heard of. And it was just so overwhelming at first when it was diagnosis after diagnosis after, it was one thing after another. It was not just, okay, your child has this, and then it was every day we were finding out something else about Jacob that maybe wasn't right or, formed correctly, or so that was kind of hard because it was just building on one thing after another. So, but as we got everything and got all the puzzle pieces together, it was a little easier to accept the big picture. Once it just felt like you were being kicked every day. Every day it was something new. In our school district, there has not been any child who has gone through who's had Charge syndrome. So it's been more of an educating, the teachers and the administrators about Jake's condition so that they can serve him better. And sometimes that's difficult because they have their agendas and I have mine, and I understand we all have our jobs to do, but that's been a little difficult, dealing with more of the politics of, the school process. I think my school district has been pretty accommodating as far as if I point out Jake's needs, they're pretty responsive to try to help me, and even if they can't right away, they will try to implement things to get them in place for, maybe a little bit down the road. So I have to say that our school district has been very, very helpful to me as far as getting Jake the services and the equipment and things he needs in the classroom. The administrators, since Jake's been in our school district, have been pretty constant. So that we all have gotten to know each other pretty well. So the teachers, I think that part's hard because when they switch every year to a different teacher, it's very difficult to, especially with a child like Jake, who has so many different issues. It's almost Christmas time before they get to know him. And then, it's downhill from there with school, and then before you know it, it's over. So this year, we're going to try keeping him with the same teacher. And we're going to try to hopefully that will help with his transition a little bit, that he won't have to start from the beginning again, or the teacher won't have to start from the beginning again. I definitely think that the IEP process has been a little challenging. I believe the school district has their agendas, and me as a parent has my agendas. And I think that, unfortunately, the school district is a little more driven by, a budget and, a little more rules as far as I really want what's best for my child. And I understand they can't give me the stars and the moon, but I think sometimes they need to be a little more flexible and realize that the parent does know the child best, and that every request is not unreasonable. Sometimes it seems like every request is really shot down fairly quickly just to sort of nip it in the bud. And, I think that's been probably the most challenging and frustrating thing. I think I want for Jacob what everybody wants, for their child. I want him to be happy and successful in his own way, whatever that may be. I think the biggest piece of advice I would give a family who just had a child diagnosed as deafblind would be definitely don't believe everything that you're hearing right now. Sometimes I think people tend to focus a little more on what might not be as opposed to what can be. And it's amazing how far these children can go and do go. And I think probably the most important thing would be try to hook up with other families and see older kids and really see what is possible. Because I think when you first find out that your child has a disability, it's so just debilitating. You just don't even know what to do, you know. And I think as time goes on, you realize how it's really just a different path, not a bad path, you know. One of the best things I've gotten from the Deafblind Project is the packet with all the letter writing examples. They're more, and there's also a book about the IEP and how what your options are if you don't agree with what your school district, you know, has offered you, or, you know. So I think that has been invaluable to me, because just knowing your rights and making people aware that you know your rights is such a powerful tool.